Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Ed, what's going on, brother? You got a special interview that's getting tagged on to the end of the show. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yes, sir. A friend of mine, Peter J. Normandia, who is he's a friend of mine. We actually got our black belts together in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. He's also a filmmaker, and I did an interview with him last week for My MMA News, and I really want to get the word out about his film. And we talked at length. It's about 22, 23 minutes long, the interview. The link will be in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. It'll be on the bottom. It'll be on the bottom of on Spotify and everywhere else so the podcast gets uploaded when we're done doing our recap tonight from the PFL versus Bellator thing. But the movie he's doing is on it's a documentary on Lou Neglia, and if you're in the northeastern part of the United States, the name should be ringing bells with you because he's the man behind Ring of Combat. Folks like Frankie Edgar, Eddie Alvarez, Aljamain Sterling, Al Iaquinta, just a laundry list of names from this region. Shane Burgos, all those guys. I mean, even guys from my gym. Uh, Ricardo Romero, who was light heavyweight in the UFC for a little while. Like they all cut their teeth in Ring of Combat, and the history that Lou Neglia has with the legalized, the rules for MMA and New Jersey's history with how the rules and how MMA just got to grow into what it is. It seems like it's long been forgotten, and this film, it's a passion project of Pete's. So, which means as my training partner, my black belt brother, that means a passion project of mine. So, I'm really trying to get the word out about it. The movie should be out this summer, but the full interview and everything Pete has to say about it, links in the description again, and our articles on MiamiNews.com. And yeah, I'll definitely be updating you guys. But if you want to jump to that, just go towards like 22, 23 minutes towards that are left of the podcast, and you can jump right to that, or just go to the link if you're watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm super interested to see this movie come out. As I was talking to Ed prior to recording, um, when Lou Neglia and Ring of Combat was around, I'm West Coast like all the way. So I was
Mm.
super familiar growing up with the Terry Troublecock and King of the Cage, Mark Hall and Cobra challenge out here. You had the UFC. You had a little bit of Rage in the Cage out in Arizona. But for me, as somebody who did tape trading and buying DVDs like in the early DVD days, um,
Mm-hmm.
that was a name that jumped out at me, and it was mainly to buy DVDs to look back at the careers of some of those guys. Now I bought these 20 years ago, so I can't remember exactly who was necessarily fighting on the DVDs I have. I need to pull them out and rewatch them because I'm sure they're loaded with just superstar after superstar. But it's just awesome to see that there'll be some more perspective that I'll be able to get to that because while I knew his name, while I knew his events,
Mm-hmm.
while I could tell you what he looks like because I see I'm doing the I think he used to do all his ring announcing and stuff like that, or he used to do a lot of that in the early days, I believe.
Yeah, way back in the day. Yeah.
That's kind of remember more how I remember it. It's just cool, and West Coast had a little bit of a lead when it came to legalized MMA and stuff, but he was really the forefront on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see that. It'll be interesting to see if there's any stuff with Larry Hazard. He was one of the commission
Yes.
guys for New Jersey back in the day, who really was
He's in the,
intricate.
he's going to be in it. He spoke with him. If you go to the neglianexus.com website, there's a list of who you can expect to see in this film, and Larry Hazard's one of them, and a bunch of other people. Just that if you think about the East Coast, he spoke with Chris Weidman, Frankie Edgar, all those guys I mentioned, pretty much all the Cerro Longo people, a couple other gyms that are pretty well known out here. I know I set him up to speak with Jim Genia, who wrote the Raw Combat, which is about the underground fight scene and how guys like Eddie Alvarez had to fight illegally before they fought legally. So it's definitely going to be Larry Hazard's in it. He spoke with him, so you can
Yeah,
expect
because
to see that.
people forget that history from Dana White has kind of changed the way people remember this stuff. UFC
Mm,
was legalized in New Jersey was one of the original non-Midwest. In fact, it might be the original. Now, obviously, they had UFC 9 was in that was in Michigan, but UFC 7 was in
mm,
Niagara Falls, so that was in New York, but I believe it was on the Indian reservation up there at the time.
mm,
And but really, Ring of Combat was the East Coast king of the cage of the time, which today doesn't sound as big, but back then it was huge because there was only, like I said,
Yeah.
so many organizations. You also had Extreme Challenge with Monty Cox in the Midwest. So you had like
Mhm.
regional. When we talk about regional MMA today, we really had it back then. You like regions of the country had like one event for like 10
Yeah.
states. So that he had that, but yeah, I think a lot of people forget that New Jersey was really on the forefront. Most of the rules we see today were created by Larry Hazard and and
Mhm.
and and John McCarthy. It was in all them, but that was all through the New Jersey Athletic Commission.
Yep.
You know, uh, to me, Larry Hazard's kind of like what I wanted Mark Ratner to be. And I don't know a lot about Larry Hazard because it was
Yeah.
earlier days. There wasn't social media. There wasn't as much. I don't know his background. I don't know all that. All I know is he was forefront in making it legalized in the United States and being legalized, especially on the East Coast of New Jersey, and getting the UFC ball rolling because it was shortly after New Jersey legalized it. Zuffa was able to purchase it and then had a viable uh,
Mhm.
a viable organization that they could put in Vegas and eventually California and New York, and the rest is history. So
Yeah.
definitely look forward to that interview and look forward to that movie. Moving forward, well, backwards, because we're going to talk about last weekend. Um, we want to get into the couple of UFC fights because some really good fights to end that card. But I think we got to start with PFL versus Bellator, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just gonna
I,
put this up there because me and you were talking as it was going on. Early card on a Saturday. So I had to watch it post hence, all my errands and stuff that I had. I mean, I had a pretty crazy weekend, but we pretty much called this outcome
I was
Bellator.
wrong on the main event. I think you nailed every one of them.
Yeah, well, that's because when I saw Fajeda fight here in New York this past summer, and seeing how big he is, I've been next to Ryan Bader and I've been next to Fajeda. And the other thing I forgot to mention last week that someone brought up on Twitter or X, Ryan Bader, because they were like, between the two of them, who do you think will do best against Ngannou? And then I remembered, I was like, you know what? Historically, and I don't include Fedor in this because he got older. I think a prime Fedor would have been included in this. Bader always had issues with heavy-handed dudes. Like when he fought Rumble Johnson out here in Newark, it was pretty much what we saw with like what this happened, what we saw happen this past Saturday, and I forgot about that. Um, and What's up, Antoine? He's asking a good question right here. It fits right into what we're talking about. How do you guys think Ngannou versus Fajeda goes? I mean, I think it'll be competitive. I think Fajeda's size. It's funny. Like when you join a martial arts school, and they talk about the size doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter if the big guy doesn't know anything about fighting. But if they know something, or even a little bit, if they wrestled in high school, whatever, that whole dynamic changes. And this is the perfect example of you have a very big man. I think Fahad is 6'8",
he's
going
big.
against
He's a big man.
yeah, no, he's really big. Like again, like he walked over me and John Morgan when we were covering PFL in New York, and I thought it was like the weather changing, and it was just him walking behind us, like like a cloud passing. I'm like, and super nice. You would think the way he is around people, the size that he is, you would think that he's like 4 feet tall. He's all, excuse me, I'm sorry, and he's like he reaches out to shake your hand and do pounds and stuff like it's almost like thirsty for attention. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, everybody knows you're here. You're 6'8", like you're the biggest guy in the whole room. But yeah, no, that's to your point though. Like that was the only fight that I was like, oof. But everybody else, dude, I mean,
And
come
I'm not
on.
complaining about being wrong. Fedor Karma hit Ryan Bader hard in 21 seconds. I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a reality check for all of MMA. He picked up a couple quick wins against Fedor,
Mhm,
basically landing one punch, and he kind of got served the
mhm.
how it goes. And it's not nothing against Ryan Bader, but
Mhm.
it didn't break my heart to see it. Let's
Yeah.
as a Fedor fan, it did break my heart.
But
Everything else I thought was great, and I mean, we were calling this years ago. We were
yeah.
calling PFL don't want no part of Bellator. We've been on the I mean, there's no two bigger Bellator fans than us in the
Mhm.
media world. Um, and we've
That don't
been
mind saying it either. We
I
don't
don't
try to
mind
be
saying it.
yeah.
No, no, no. We're not. I'm not ashamed to say it because I'm not. There's some embarrassments. There's been some ugly stuff with Bellator,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is when talent's out there, you can look at these guys and go. I mean,
Mhm.
they're combined right now. 10. Well, if you count the Ryzen's first event, I know the second event that there was Pitbull got upset and some stuff like that. But
Mhm.
in the head to head, where it was just basically 5-on-5, or in this case 6-on-6, um, Bellator's now 10-1
Yeah,
um,
against other people, yeah.
against other people, and their only
Yeah.
loss was the 43-year-old heavyweight against a 6'8" Brazilian monster on the come up. I mean, I'm just saying, and there were some close fights. The Eblin fight was extremely close.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
honestly thought that Santos was going to beat Romero. That was the one that kind of had me a little nervous. And then Romero'd and Santos kind of Santos
yeah.
to end that fight. But
And
I
the
mean,
AJ McKee, not for not like I thought it was gonna be like an exciting back and forth with Colin. Like I had McKee picked to win just because he's just way more well rounded. I thought something toe to toe in the pocket, Colin could be some sort of a threat, but no, like AJ
no,
McKee literally
AJ
showed
McKee
like
went in there and terminated him.
next level MMA fighter.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. We said
Hmm.
Collard's a good fighter, but McKee's one of those.
Hmm.
He might be one of the greats, and I don't know. I wonder how this goes. I just don't. I can't. I mean, we joked about over the weekend about let's
Yeah.
just scrap it all and call it Bellator and move on.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
So
I don't know how.
that's kind of like what like they really got to get their shit together. I know this thing. I mean, it's the event outside of the fight. I mean, obviously, 1,000 congratulations to the Bellator side of this, and that they showed what's up, and for anybody that made fun of the fucking brand, that they carried the brand with honor. That's something that even Aaron Pico kind of hinted at, like how Scott Coker was good to him and stuff like that in his career, and who avenged his loss against Corrales too. So it's just something that I think when you look at what they tried to do leading up to this, they 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 went too hard, and now they don't look too good. Seeing as how you bought Bellator, making them look like there was some unwanted product, and here they come with their talent. At the end of the day, all these promotions, UFC, Bellator, One Championship, it's the fighters that carry this thing. And if you try to say that anyone that tried to knock Bellator's roster and talent, they keep backing it up, like you said with Rising, and they did it again this past weekend. And PFL needs to slow their roll with we're number two. No, okay, you know what? You bought the name of who everyone kind of thought was number two this whole time.
Number two in MMA. It's been clear for a long time. People just it's mainly the UFC zombies that just didn't want to
Mhm.
accept that because then guys like Eddie Alvarez and Chandler and
Mhm.
I mean those guys go over there, they have success.
Yeah.
Chandler's record's not super successful, but the guy's making money and he's putting on hell of a fights and he's going to headline whenever he fights next.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I don't know. I love it. I think it's hilarious. Honestly, they're lucky they didn't have Cyborg on the card because they just would have had another Ben for Bellator. I
Mhm.
mean, I just don't know where they rebound from here. I don't know how you can. I mean,
Mhm.
you're gonna have to change the name. You can't have two organization names and have your organization getting squashed.
So yeah, and yeah, that's a really bad look. But one of the other things that as far as outside, never mind that the talent versus the talent thing. I mean, they made themselves look really bad with that. But the other thing was like the presentation. I don't know what did you think as far as like the way it was presented. First of all, did you know how to watch the entire thing? I mean, outside of the pay-per-view portion, like the prelims, did you know where to watch those? I mean, obviously it's ESPN pay-per-view, so most people go default to ESPN Plus. But the reason I ask is because when I had to look for it, again, I was out and about, so I had to watch it after the fact. When I'm like, where do they stream the prelims? I go to Bellator because Bellator always used to, when they were on Showtime, wherever prelims, you could go to their Bellator YouTube channel. That's where you'd see them. Not there. That's what maybe PFL did it. Go to PFL's YouTube channel. Not there. Where do you think I found it?
TikTok? I don't know.
the
Twitch?
the Zone MMA apparently has a YouTube channel, and that's where it was streamed. Now, why did I have to dig for that? Why wasn't that like something that we saw all over the fucking place? You know, I know you want people to do the ESPN Plus thing, but you're also partnered with the Zone. The Zone literally, like, they have a social media channel. I think that it has like 500 followers. I mean, again, we went through this with Bellator and the Zone. They're not good at marketing the shit that they want to be a part of,
Nope.
and it just seemed like there was a lot of fumbles. There was a lot of fumbles. It looked beautiful. There was some nice entrance, but the lighting was kind of, people were complaining on social media about how it was lit. It looked like kind of like it was some, you know, poor product as far as the lighting. I don't know if that had to do with, because it seemed like it was an outdoor arena, but I don't
I
know,
mean, you
man.
know how I knew it was PFL? There was thousands of empty seats.
You're not the only one that said
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to bash them, but my God, they're embarrassing. I don't want to be like we just criticize people for going after Bellator, so I'm not going to do that so much with them. But it just doesn't make sense to me. We know that they have funding, and I feel like we're getting in an era now. We have it with UFC and the Apex events where they've already been prepaid for their events.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me like that might be the case here as well with what we just saw this past weekend. Because with that MMA,
Especially, they kept saying it was sold out. Yeah, you're right.
if you can't sell that out in Saudi Arabia when the government is essentially putting the event on over there,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. I don't even know how to explain that. Like I don't where if they can't sell even come close to selling that out, where is he going to put fights on? There's no, like you said, the promotion's terrible. They have no TV deal worked out for PFL, the Ned Cedric Doumbé fight. Good luck trying to find that. They
Yeah.
have no deal worked out for Bellator 302. Good luck trying to find that.
Yeah.
They're not going to be broadcast. These are not serious. I don't want to come off because I'm not an expert at
Yeah.
this, but they don't seem serious. They don't. If I was going to buy Bellator, I would have had a deal worked out 7 months ago about
Mm-hmm.
where we're going to broadcast their events. It's like everything's just by the week. Well, we'll see if we can get something this week. And I don't know. It to me, they prepaid the money, whether it's through all their investors, whether
Yeah.
it's through.
It seems like everything they're doing is catering to whatever rich guy they've sat in rooms with. Like, hey, you like that? We're gonna do this, and those are the seats that are probably filled at what we're, you know what I mean? Like they did it for Turkey Al, whatever his name is, for Riyadh season, and it's like, okay, as long as you like it, fuck everyone else. You know what I mean? Like if it was sold out, maybe someone gave them the fee for all the tickets, but obviously people didn't show up to watch it. You know?
I agree, and maybe it wasn't meant to ever sell out, and maybe it was meant to be more of a private showing in some sense. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but it doesn't. None of the other events in Saudi Arabia I've seen have been like that. Those all
Mm-hmm.
seem to be really full. So I don't,
Yeah.
and most of those were boxing. So maybe
Yeah.
maybe boxing is more the flavor over there right now. I don't know. I mean, they're taking MMA fighters and
Mm-hmm.
like Ngannou and boxing, so maybe that's it. Um, but I don't know. To answer Antoine's question, or
This
which
one,
was
did you guys like Strike Force more than UFC mid 2000? Um, I did. I like Strike Force.
more than the UFC in the mid 2000s. I can't say I liked them more, but I was a big Strikeforce fan. I
Yeah,
attended probably a dozen of their events, and
I feel like
um,
back then, like the way we like MMA, that's how it was back then. Like I liked UFC, I like Strike Force, I like Pride. Like,
yeah, that's a great point right there because
yeah.
in reality, Strikeforce wasn't uh, their heyday was more like the late 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
The post Pride 2009s kind of when Strikeforce at that point picked up because they picked up the Overeems, the Josh Barnett's, the Fedors, a lot of the scraps that the UFC didn't want
Mm-hmm.
when they purchased the UF Pride because of the heavier contracts. Those guys made good money, and they had a history with Barnett already. They weren't going to get along with Fedor, and um, the way they were testing people back then, Overeem would have popped in 2 seconds in the UFC. So I think that's why that. But Yeah, no, not more than the UFC. The UFC mid 2000s was pretty peak. I mean, you're
Yeah, that's
talking
fun.
George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva,
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar moving in there,
Yeah. Fun
Andre
stuff.
Arlovsky prime, Frankie Edgar,
Mhm.
the WEC guys coming in, being
Mhm.
fresh faces, Hendersons and Cerrones, and Pettis and those guys. So, no, I wouldn't say that, but Strikeforce was an awesome product that
Mhm.
there was a reason why it was purchased.
Yeah.
There was the UFC purchased Pride, purchased UFC, and purchased WEC because all three of them were successful. Pride had faded because of their legal issues, but
Mhm.
all three of those organizations were successful and in a threat, or were in a small part a threat to the UFC, and the UFC eliminated them, which is why we're dealing with this lawsuit and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was great. But to answer your question about Ngannou and Fahea, I don't think it's going to happen.
Mhm.
I think this is all just gaslighting by Ngannou, talking
Mhm.
PFL, telling him what they need to hear so that he doesn't get bad pub. But
Yeah,
he's
apparently.
gonna come back and fight Fahea after he fights Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua.
Yeah, and apparently, like I didn't even think of it, but like there was no face off with him and Fajeda. They did nothing. They did nothing to say this is
They
actually
wanted
going to
to, and
happen.
Ngannou left prior to being able to do it.
Yeah,
He got up
which
from his
is
seat and left because he knows. He knows. He's not stupid. He's gonna be one of the richest athletes in the planet after for the
yeah,
year. In a year
yeah,
span, he's gonna make like $60 million fighting Fury and Joshua. I don't we get excuses about Conor McGregor not fighting.
mhm.
Conor McGregor's obviously a billionaire from his outside, but the money that Ngannou's making in these fights is what Conor wishes he was making on the paychecks for the fights.
Yeah,
So I just don't see it happening. If he beats Joshua, there is no chance in hell that fight happens because
yeah,
we're gonna see Tyson Fury too,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
we're gonna see Joshua too,
yeah. I
and
mean, I wouldn't
Ngannou's
be.
gonna go down as
Yeah,
one of the greatest combat athletes of all time if he manages to pick up. I mean, he should have beat Tyson Fury the
Riyadh,
first.
this Saudi thing, the Riyadh thing, whatever this is that they keep putting these humongous super boxing matches. That's that because Misfits boxing is done. That's pretty. This is like rich people sanctioned Misfits boxing, but with actual skilled, high level fighters from whatever combat sport they come from. Not a bunch of YouTube like fucking guys with made up beef or whatever. These are actually like fighters that people it's under boxing rules, but still it's something that when you see it happen, like that promo they put out with the video game promo, the Street Fighter promo they put out. I mean, come on, like we used to see cool promos like that. Made me think about the Aldo McGregor promo, like you don't see promos like that for MMA anymore, but like to see something like that for that boxing match, I mean, it just goes to
It
show you
looked
those
like it
pockets
was
run deep
it.
over there.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know. I wish the UFC would pick up on some of that stuff, and maybe they don't have to. Maybe it's all
No,
games, and
if you saw they made 1.3 billion, whatever the financial
yeah.
reports
I
were
mean,
out. So as long as they're making money, they could give a fuck.
that's how it seems. But
Mhm.
but yeah, great weekend for Bellator MMA. I don't know what that means for their bosses in PFL, but we'll see what happens down the line. I just know that PFL probably should stay away from crisscross matches for a while
Mhm.
until they establish some more.
Yeah, they need more fight people running stuff over there. Like if you're gonna run both brands on separate networks, run them. Do your little champions versus champions thing, and maybe at the beginning of every year, since you end your season at the end of November, usually November for PFL. What they started something good here. They could do it again next year, and just if they want to run the brand like that, but they have to make us. They have to do the WWE SmackDown thing. Like if you're gonna do Bellator events on Fubu Sports, then put them on. Do them like that. Do whatever you're doing with the PFL, and then just throw them together in a card like that again if you want to do that again. But I mean, this thing where they try to like make it seem like Bellator is their C League or whatever, or their minors or whatever. That's the other way around. Sorry to tell you.
Yep, the prisoners are running the facility now over there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, all right. Well, speaking of UFC, They did have a fight night last week. We don't talk a bunch of fight nights, but this one was special because it had a couple really good fights on top of it. Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, and Brandon Royval versus Brandon Moreno.
Mhm.
Um, the Mexico City party was spoiled a bit by both of them. I
Yeah.
know Brian Ortega is Mexican American, but
I was kind of happy about that, low key. I'm not gonna lie.
you're not a big Yair fan, and that's you haven't really hid that. You don't have anything against him, but he's not your
Is
boy here. But
yeah.
I
Brandon
didn't see it
Moreno's.
happening. I mean, especially when Ortega busts up his ankle in while they're announcing his name. I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, this guy's just paper mache now. And then Yair goes out and practically finishes the guy, and then tide turns, and uh, Ortega
Yeah.
finishes him in the third round of a 5-round co-main event fight. So hell of a turnaround for Ortega, and
Mhm.
big win. I mean, he stole the title shot likely from Yair, and
Yeah.
probably
I
got it for himself at this point.
I think he jumped up to number 3 today because we record on Tuesdays and the rankings are released on Tuesday, and I believe he jumped up to number 3, in the UFC's rankings. So for that
Which
weight
might as
class.
well be higher because Volkanovski's probably ranked higher than him, but he's not getting another title shot.
Yeah.
I don't think. I hope not. And then what is it, Holloway? And Holloway's got his hands full with
And
Gagey. I mean,
we'll see how
it,
that goes.
honestly, why don't we? It would be great if they split that fight up at this point, and we just plan Topuria and Holloway and Gagey and Islam for like these UFC headline. We got one next month where we have no headliner because they stole. Or well, in 301's struggling now because they stole the headliner for 300, and you
So,
know
Ortega jumps to number 3. Yair drops to number 4, and then above Ortega is obviously Volkanovski, Holloway, and then Topuria at the top.
where's Emmett at on that list?
It's number 7.
7. Okay. Coming off a big knockout. I didn't know if
Mm-hmm.
he's sitting there. So interesting. But yeah, Ortega picks up a big win, biggest one he's had in a long time. First fight he's had in a long time. So good to see. If not just for that fight alone, you bring some flavor back to that division when you were
Mm-hmm.
getting wondering if you were going to see Volkanovski Topuria 7 times, and
Yeah.
because the guys just keep wiping each other out. So that's nice to see there. In the main event, I was wrong. Brendan Royval picks
Mm-hmm.
up the big win. You were smart for not picking a side on that one, and
Well, split decision too. So
it was close. It was
yeah.
close. I thought Royval did win. I thought he won 3 rounds to 2, but I could see it being arguments for both sides. He threw a lot of punches. He kept active. People are kind of getting on his case for landing a low percentage of the punches, but you're dealing with 3 judges on the side. Sean Wheelock talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody sees the same thing. A
Yeah.
missed punch for one judge could look like a near knockout blow for another judge.
Yep.
So throwing 600 shots in a fight, you 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 know you
You're
you
probably gonna miss 1 or 2. Yeah.
you're gonna miss hundreds. But
Yeah.
but again, you could trick the judges a little bit just by being active. There's
Mm-hmm.
been a lot of guys, Clay Guidas, and this is not to be, Diego Sanchez. Those guys won some decisions over some
Yeah.
people in their career where people thought they lost fights, but they won it because they were the ones that were constantly throwing punches. Never
Yeah.
mind, they got turned into hamburger. They threw 400 punches in a fight. The
Yeah.
judges saw that, and that's how the judges judged it. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but props to Rival. I was super happy for him. Coming off of that tough
Yeah.
loss in the title fight, it's big
And
win for
everything
him.
he's dealt with as far as like, I mean, being sidelined for multiple injuries. What sucks is it looks like he tore his MCL in this fight. I think he put out a post on his Instagram where he said now he's got to deal with that after picking up such a great win that probably set him up for more greatness. But I mean, he said it to us when he was on this podcast, right? One of the guys he liked that got him into MMA is Miguel Torres, and that's another guy that literally just threw his skeleton at people, a la Justin Gaethje and all these other fighters that just use their bodies like battle axes. So it's what makes them so much fun to watch, but it also catches up with them, unfortunately. Their hearts are bigger than their tendons, so to speak. So
No, but huge win.
mhm.
Moreno looked a little bit off, and you go through wars. These
Yeah.
guys go through wars. They're not robots. There's going to be
Mhm.
some natural, diminishing skills and
Mhm.
everything when you go through this. That's why the guys that last old into their career are so fascinating and stuff, because it's a miracle to be able to get to where you are. Couture didn't have a lot of early fights. So he's an outlier, but the guys fighting into
Mhm.
their 40s, the Overeems and some of these guys who are
Yeah.
competitive into their early 40s and stuff. That's hard to do. So,
Mhm.
um, you know, again, good fight.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was
we're.
a great Saturday
I think we'll see a trilogy down the line somewhere.
for
Speaking of,
sure.
I got to catch one fight on KSW. I got to catch the no rules, no holds barred fight with soccer kicks. I almost didn't want to watch it because it's what we wish we had. It is so much better. I am so sorry, but it is what real MMA is supposed to be. That and nobody got died, nobody got drug out, and guys know how to defend it. They prepare for it, and the ref does his job. And when a
Mhm.
guy's defenseless, getting kicked, you stop the fight. It's no different than anything else we're seeing here. But it was glorious to see. I don't remember the names of the fighters because it doesn't matter. I don't know what the announcers were saying because it was in Polish, but it was glorious. It was
Yeah.
glorious, and I would I'd pay. I wish KSW, if KSW is smart, they would make their rule set no rules
Mhm.
and just be that, and just be the, hey, you really want to go test yourself? Go
Yeah,
out to
yeah.
Poland.
Yeah,
Go out
yeah.
to the stadiums in Poland, and that would be the
Hey.
next step. It used to be Japan. Japan doesn't have the huevos to bring back some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Apparently, it seems like there would be a market for it, and
Yeah, I mean, you got to do something different. I mean, the biggest name brand, the UFC does the same thing, wash, rinse, repeat over and over. They've got the programming in. I mean, I think people, of everybody, if you want to compare them to the company that owns them, with the WWE and UFC are under TKO, if they're gonna be owned by the same conglomerate, and they're gonna start being similar. If you look at WWE, like, there was a time when you liked it and then you don't anymore. Like, that's going to happen with the UFC now if they're that big. And folks are going to look for something else. They're going to look for their AEW. They're going, you know what I mean? They're going to look for something different, and if KSW can do it, if Dave Feldman at BKFC can do it, even the shit Chatri, if he gets his head out of his ass and trying to stop trying to flex so much, they can definitely do it because they came here and did great in Colorado. So,
yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time. The buffet of different stuff
mhm,
is what always made
keeps it
MMA
fun.
great. Yep. Uh,
Mhm.
all right. Well, again, stay tuned for Ed's interview with Pete Normandia, and and learn about Lou Neglia and Ring of Combat and the movie coming out. So that's next. Thank you for listening, everybody. You can follow the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Thank you for listening, everyone, and have a good night.
Peace.